Good morning, good evening, whatever time you're watching this. In today's video, we're taking this wrecked, non-running Nissan 350Z and transforming it into a running, driving, dedicated drift car, all for under $10,000. It feels good I can finally do this on a car and not care about it. So ever since we got a new drift track in Idaho, I've been on the lookout for a car to build and drift. I kept going through different cars in my head, like a Miata, a RX-8 maybe, something cheap that I was familiar with. But then out of nowhere, this car popped up, a 2003 Nissan 350Z with an LSD for just $2,000. When I looked closer at the listing, I realized who was selling it, and it was actually an old high school friend of mine named Rem. So when I saw that, I knew I had to try to get this car. This 350Z was Rem's project car. He was driving on the weekends, enjoying it, until one day he ended up getting hit, and that's where this damage came from. And so after that, Rem decided he'd start sliding the car because it already has some, damage. It's not perfect anymore, so why not? And when he started to do that, he ended up blowing the motor. And so basically, he came to the conclusion that this car was not worth fixing up anymore. And so that's when I bought it. After buying the car from Rem, I figured it wasn't a good idea to drive it across town with how bad of rod knock it had. I didn't know if the car was gonna abandon me somewhere, if it was just gonna break down, or if the engine was gonna blow up and catch on fire. So I ended up calling a tow truck and having the car delivered straight to my house. So it's safe to say this car needs a lot of work. It needs a new engine. We know that for sure because the engine has rod knock. It needs a new transmission because the transmission grinds, doesn't really like going into any other gears. Along with that, we're gonna need a lot of small bits and pieces. The car's already on coilovers, but we're gonna need a clutch, need all types of hoses. As with anything, there's gonna be more parts that I forget, but those are gonna be the main things that we need to get this car ready for the track. So starting off with the most important part, we need to get an engine for this thing. So to get an engine for this car, I actually did something that I've never done before. I ordered an engine off eBay. It showed up right when the seller told me it would, showed up in a box truck, and I was fortunate enough to have a really cool coworker named Bryant that was able to pull the motor out for me so that I could take it home. Now let's hope this motor works out, because if this car doesn't run and drive with that new motor, one, it's a lot of time wasted. It's gonna put me back even longer when it comes to drifting, and it's gonna make us go way over budget. Right before I started working on the 350Z motor swap, I was involved in a terrible car accident. I was parked behind my dad's truck at a red light when out of nowhere, a woman driving a Toyota Corolla slammed into me at around 60 miles an hour. The impact knocked me unconscious, and I woke up to my dad pulling me out of my car. I was hit so hard that not only my first ever car, my Ford Focus, was completely totaled, but I also totaled my dad's F-150. I was rushed to the hospital and checked for internal bleeding. Thankfully, nothing life-threatening was found, but I did suffer serious tissue damage to my lower back and shoulder, along with a pretty gnarly concussion that caused me to lose my far sight vision. So now I have to wear glasses. I'm extremely thankful to still be here, but the accident completely put my 350Z drift project on pause, and I had to take a full year off from working on cars so that my body could recover and I could go to physical therapy. So now that we got that out of the way, let's go back to present day. All right guys, so it has been 11 months since the last time I touched this car. It's about to be winter again in Idaho. We're at the point where I either start working on it now or I wait for winter to pass. The goal of today is to try to remove the motor. It's been 11 months, so I don't remember exactly where I am with the car, but I do remember before I got hit, I had basically everything unbolted and ready to go. There's just a few lines. So we're gonna uncover the car and then try to push it in. I'm gonna try to push it in. Jen behind the camera is gonna try to steer it for me without power steering. So I'm gonna try to get it into the garage, and then hopefully we can figure out where we're at and give you guys a better update. But yeah, we've got a new engine sitting outside and a new transmission sitting outside. I probably should have bought a storage unit after I got hit and just paid somebody to move everything. So yeah. Anyways.
finally time to kick off the engine swap. I was planning on tackling this solo, but luckily my buddies Parker and Garrett came over to help out. Big shout out to them. This swap went so much better with their help. Once we pulled out the motor, it was time for the classic engine bay photo. As you can see, the bay is completely empty now. We disconnected the power steering and AC lines, and now we need to transfer the wiring harness from the old motor to the new one for a plug and play setup. Both of these motors are VQ35DEs, so nothing should be different. We swapped the old wiring harness onto the new motor since we know it works. Even though the old motor was blown, we know that it ran and drove somewhat, so there should be no issues there. We didn't swap any sensors, figuring that the ones on the new motor are in good shape. After the wiring harness was all done and swapped over, we brought the new motor into the garage and set it on a pallet to protect the oil pan. The pallet also helped us mate the new flywheel, clutch, and transmission together. We tried the bread trick to remove the pilot bushing, but it didn't work out, so we grabbed a puller from Harbor Freight to swap over the automatic pilot bearing to the manual transmission pilot bearing. They are significantly different in size, so this was a necessary thing to do. While Garrett was busy doing that, Parker and I got to work on the old hoses. The Z1 silicone hose kit that we installed looked great. Check out the before and after. It was an easy swap. Makes the engine bay look so much cleaner and easier to service in the future. Definitely recommend if you are swapping your Z or if you're doing major work to your Z to swap out those old hoses. It's never a fun time to work with those. Next, we bolted up the flywheel to the new motor and used a clutch alignment tool to install the upgraded Z1 clutch. It's not too wild, but it'll handle stock power and drifting just fine. We torqued everything down to spec. Huge thanks to Garrett for guiding me. I've done a few clutches in my life, but I'm still learning and I didn't want to make a silly mistake on this one since we're going to be putting so much pressure on it. Then we unwrapped the new CD008 transmission from Nissan. It's a transmission with more robust synchros compared to the CD009 that is such a notorious transmission. Basically, it's just a sturdier unit overall, and it's currently being made by Nissan. So to recap, the motor has about 50,000 miles on it, but the transmission is brand new with 0 miles, so we still do have to do a break-in period. It'll be nice knowing that if something goes wrong, it's likely just the motor. We then mated the transmission back to the motor. Once we got everything married together, we lifted it up off the pallet and brought it in. It was a full family ordeal, as you can see. Everyone was outside helping. My girlfriend Jen had to be our makeshift counterbalance because with the motor and trans attached, my old cherry picker, which had seen multiple cars, just couldn't handle it no matter how much we extended the arms and the legs at the bottom. It's been good for Miata engine swaps, but the VQ35DE is just a little bit too heavy for that stand. That's definitely on my list for an upgrade before the next engine swap you'll see on the channel, which will be with the 240SX. So put some recommendations down in the comments below if you know of any good cherry pickers I should pick up. Finally, we got the motor in and it was time for its first startup. My dad and I talked through what could possibly go wrong, evaluated the risks, and got ready for the big moment.
So stay, just in case. Fingers crossed. No way.
One problem child, two problem child.
Radiator fans work.
That's good.
The transmission, people are right though, the transmission's super sticky when it's cold.
Mm-hmm.
The CD008, they said that it sticks, especially with the redline fluid. This was only like a week of work, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was really quick.
It wasn't as bad as I thought it would be. Goes to show you if you got friends and I guess a one-car garage. We didn't even use the other side, so now we got to get ready to drift. So now that we have a running drift-ready 350Z, the next step is building the skills I need to actually slide it on track. Here's the problem. I don't have the cash to hire a personal coach. And in Idaho, we just don't get enough track days in a year for consistent practice. That left me with only one option, my racing simulator. If you've been subscribed for a while, you know I'm deep into sim racing. I started years ago with a cheap plastic Thrustmaster wheel. Every Black Friday over the years, I've upgraded a piece at a time until I've ended up with what I currently have on this rig. But here's the truth, you don't need all of this to learn drifting. I'm 100% confident I could teach somebody the basics and have them on track with more knowledge than a total beginner using just a $200 to $300 wheel and pedal setup. For the track, I picked Ebisu Higashi. Now you might be asking why. Well, there's two reasons. One, the Drift King, Teichi Chutsuya, made a full Drifting 101 course that I've watched growing up on that track. So I wanted to show how somebody like me uses that real life educational video to then learn how to drift on a virtual track. But for the other reason, it's got some high speed sweepers that mimic the elevation changes and length of the NASCAR corners on my local drift track. And it's got a couple of tight, high angle hairpins that also match the chicanes and technical sections of my local track. Now for the car, I found a Nissan 350Z mod that feels shockingly close to my car in real life. I'm talking almost 1-to-1. Weight transfer, throttle response, grip levels, everything feels very similar. When I'm in the sim, steering with my hands, I swear it feels like I'm driving the real car. I know that sounds a little bit dramatic, and it might sound a little gimmicky to people who haven't done this before, but that connection, that's everything. If anybody's interested in the specific car, I'll throw it down in the link in the description. That way you guys can follow along if you're trying to learn on your own 350Z in real life. So we start off with a couple practice laps. This leads to some overcorrecting and some sketchy driving, but that's what drifting is. You have to learn the limits of the car before you can really push it. Drifting's not just about sliding, it's the feel. It's understanding how the car reacts under braking, under throttle, as it sways left and right with steering input. Your job is to keep it balanced, controlled, and sideways all at once. So lap after lap, I kept doing this and kept improving. By the end, I was linking the entire track with a stock 350Z and Assetto Corsa. And I kept doing this for weeks and weeks and weeks leading up to the drift event. And that's all I did. No real life seat time, just sim, reps, muscle memory. So that way when I roll up to the real track, I'm not wrestling with the fundamentals all day. I have a solid foundation. I can focus on the driving, not learning how to drive. So we have the car, and now all that's left to do is head to the track.
So today is the day the car is running. It's been a long time leading up to this. It's been, Jen, how long? Like a year and a half now? 100 years? Feels like 100 years. But we're almost ready to go to the track. So we need to pack the stuff up into the car to drive there because we're not trailering this because I do not have a truck or a trailer to use at the moment. So hopefully it doesn't break. So this is what we're working with for storage for the way to the track. Now, we have some friends coming in other cars too that I could, put some stuff in, but I think we should be able to get mostly everything in here. So I'll be right back. I want to show you guys something that I found that should help us. So Jen and I went to the junkyard and picked up these absolutely mint 350Z rear wheels. So we've got some just basic tires on here that I got mounted that are brand new. We've got those beat up tires from the junkyard that are gonna be our burner set. They're also a different compound, I think, so we're gonna have to try that out. And then we've got these brand new tires that we're also gonna take in the car. Basically, we're taking 3 sets of tires with us, so we should have enough to party on a stock C. But basically, I need to pressure wash these off because they're absolutely filthy. They've been sitting outside, and then we can put them in the back. Do you think they'll fit in the back? What if we took the spare tire out? But other than that, we're gonna need to load up some tools. I'm gonna bring my tire inflator just in case, because I don't know what PSI I'm gonna run at. So I'm gonna try to adjust that on the fly. So gonna bring the Milwaukee tire inflator, gonna bring my small impact, gonna bring my sockets, because I honestly don't know what to prepare for, and I don't know what's gonna go wrong. The car seems pretty solid. We've driven the car 1,000 miles so far, my daily commute to work to break everything in, and it's been great. And then I did the new oil change, fluid change, so the oil looks good, transmission feels great, diff feels fine. So now I guess all that's left is to pack everything up and get to the drift event. All right, so first things first, to pass tech, we need a helmet. This is a helmet that was passed down to me from my dad. And so this is just an old Simpson helmet. I've used this for go-karting in the years past. And the other thing I've used for go-karting are these. So these are my shirts tucked in gloves that I use. I really like them. They're super dirty. They need to be cleaned, but this thing's also super dirty and needs to be cleaned, so it's not a big deal. And then the last thing, we don't need a cage because this car is not a convertible.
But what we do need is a fire extinguisher that's securely mounted along with a battery that's securely mounted. And so I ended up going with the H3R Performance fire extinguisher quick release. And so this will be good in case anybody else catches on fire at the track, or hopefully not, knock on 350Z, that this car catches on fire. Hopefully we don't have to cut to some footage of that happening, because that would suck. But yeah, just in case, to keep me safe and other people around me safe, we're gonna be running a quick release fire extinguisher. So one thing that I glossed over a little bit is what tech means. So at track, you have to pass what's called tech. So you pay for the track day, which is normally around, I think around here, it's like 100 and something bucks, like 120 bucks. That allows you to have the skid pad, that allows you to have time on track. So to pass tech, to my knowledge, what you need is a secured battery, a helmet, gloves, fire extinguisher, all your lug nuts on your wheels, and if you have a convertible, you have to have a cage. So I think that's everything that we need to be able to go to the driver's meeting, pass the inspection, and get on track. We got everything that we need. So going over this again, I know I talked about it a little bit, but I want to show you. Pliers, sockets, wrenches, screwdrivers, crescent wrench, lug socket tool, extra oil because 350Zs like to burn it, ATF in case there's some issue with my power steering lines, inflator, automatic ratchet, mini impact. This I feel like is important to bring because this car is newer. I can read what codes it throws if it does throw a code. Hopefully we don't have to use this, but if we do, maybe it's something that's not serious that we can ignore. I don't know, we'll see. I'm using these Milwaukee hard cases to carry all my tools. Then we got a breaker bar for the lugs and a torque wrench in case we need to retorque anything that I left loose, but I don't think I left anything loose on the car that I can think of, but we'll find out. If there is something, we'll know pretty fast, and it'll probably be bad, but I think I torqued everything, so. But I'm probably gonna think about it the whole time I'm on track. Like, did I torque that one bolt? But anyways, we have one last thing that we need to bring with us in order for us to have a successful drift event, and it is this. Let's go. All right, guys, so we just passed tech, which I already explained to you guys, but basically the only thing they told me to do was torque down my lug nuts, make sure everything's good. Everything else went great. So we planned perfect. We're now able to go on the track. The track is live right now, so people are driving. We're gonna go to the skid pad first because, again, I've never done this. So we're gonna see how the car does on the skid pad first before even going out on track. And then hopefully I feel comfortable enough that we can get out there and start running laps. So we're gonna throw this on real quick. I'm thinking, what do you think, Jen, right here? It's pretty sick. They give you a little tech sticker. Okay, there we go. We are now certified. Now let's go drive. All right, so I'm at the skid pad. There's one guy going before me, and I think it's a chaser. He's having a blast. I'm gonna see how the car feels. I don't know. This is my first time driving with glasses too, with a helmet. And it actually doesn't feel as bad as I thought it would. I was really disappointed when I had to wear these, but it's okay. Also, stock steering wheel with gloves. I don't know. We'll see. All right, here we go. Let's try it out. I can't get the diff to go. It went really good.
Does it feel like how it is on the sim?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, right on.
Yeah, the exact same. Did one of my wheels stop spinning at some point?
Oh, it did?
Yeah, so the diff doesn't want to lock all the time. I have to hit it really hard to get the diff to lock. But it works. Okay guys, so after talking to Talon, he said to air up my tires more because I'm getting what's called side bite, which is where the sidewall of the tire is like flexing inward and making the tire grip. And so we don't want that. So we're gonna air up the tires more. I don't know if he just said the rears or also the fronts, but I think just the rears I'm gonna air up first and see how it feels. We're gonna go back out on the skid pad, see how it feels. We've got all day, so we're gonna go back out, try it again, see how it feels. If it feels really good, then I'm gonna go on track. We're just gonna use this tire inflator. It says they're at 45 PSI already. So maybe we'll go 55. I don't know how much PSI is too much PSI. But we're gonna find out, yeah. I can drift. Holy shit. So after figuring out how to get the most out of the viscous LSD, we then headed over to Talon in the pits to go for a sight lap. He was nice enough to give me a ride along in the BMW. I'd actually never been in his car before this, so it was really cool to be in a car that's more of a purpose-built drift car compared to my stock 350Z. And we went and drove around the track. This kind of put everything in perspective for me, so I kind of knew what speed to be hitting stuff at and just the overall line of the track. So it was very helpful to do this. I'd actually recommend it if you have a friend with you that is already experienced in drifting at a track that you're learning at. Maybe go for a sight lap with them. Might just help you get a good lay of the land when it comes to drifting each corner. So now it's finally time to go back to the pits, grab my car, and go out on track for the very first time.
cheering you on up there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They
They were like, this is the first time, you know, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah. Yeah.
Now remember, I built this in the backyard.
I know.
What do you think?
Go again.
Go again?
Jimmy.
We blew a tire. It's not good.
Can I see it? Oh, wow.
Jeez. It's cooked.
Oh my.
Wow.
You are amazing. Good job.
Well, guys, we did it. We took this junkyard bound 350Z and saved it and turned it into a fun car to learn to drift with. If you remember at the intro of this video, I talked about the budget for this car being under $10,000 to achieve our goal. So let's break down the cost from start to finish and talk about everything that went into this car and how much it would cost you to do the exact same thing I did in this video, because that is the goal of this video, is to basically inspire you guys at home to take the risk like I have to be able to learn how to drift and fulfill a life dream if that's something that you're into. So with me on my phone, I've written down all the costs associated with building this car, and we're gonna go through it bit by bit and then add it all up at the end to see if we're under budget. So let's start off with the cost of the car. The cost of the car was $2,000. When I bought this car, it had a blown motor and a blown transmission. Next up was ordering the motor, which cost about $1,749. We had to get a bunch of small supporting parts for the motor, including hoses, belts, spark plugs, etc. That came in at about $390. After that, we were needing to replace the transmission, and while we were there, it made sense to replace the flywheel and clutch as well, since we were using this car for mainly a drift and sometimes autocross application. So that came out to $3,015 for the clutch, flywheel, and transmission from Z1 Motorsports. If you remember, tech was a big thing that we covered before going to the track, and that was something that we did have to put some of the budget towards. So to be able to pass tech, we needed a fire extinguisher, and I went with a nicer one that has a quick release mount and whatnot. You could do this cheaper, but I chose to do something a little bit nicer from H3R. That's a company that I've worked with in the past that I really enjoy using. This is not sponsored. I just like their fire extinguishers. I run them in all of my cars. So for the fire extinguisher, that costs $240. Another thing that I actually didn't install until post the first drift event, but I feel like you should probably do this if you're gonna go to your first drift event. I installed a low temp thermostat after the first drift event. This was about 90 bucks. It's a Mishimoto low temp thermostat. Basically what this does is it keeps your coolant temps lower than the factory thermostat, meaning that the car won't heat soak as much when you are beating up on it on track. It is still necessary to eventually get an oil cooler. We're gonna talk about that in a little bit, but that's what I chose to do for this car, just to get my feet wet with drifting. And since I wasn't doing a bunch of hot laps back to back, I did do a lot of spacing out that you don't see on camera, where I would hit the track for about 3 laps, come off track, let the car cool down, enjoy the day, get back in the car, and then drive again. And speaking of driving, that leads me to my next thing. This car already had BC coilovers on it, but we're not gonna keep that out of the budget just because I was fortunate enough to have them on this car. I accounted for this in the budget to make sure that it was realistic for you at home to be able to do this as well. So for the coilovers, you can choose from multiple different brands. There are plenty of big brands out there like BC, which this car was on when we started drifting, that you can get for around the $1,200 to $1,500 range. The BCs specifically and the coilovers that are now on this car that I have changed over to were both about $1,200. For tires, we went through about 6 sets of tires. That was $528 in total. Again, I'm running a very cheap tire compound. There are other ones out there that do get more expensive. It depends on if you need more grip out of the car and whatnot. But for me, that was how much I spent. For the spare wheels that I got at the junkyard, those were only $50. So if you can, try to go to your local junkyard, see if you can get some 5x114.3 if you're doing a 350Z specifically. You kind of want to stick around the 18-inch wheel size from what I've heard, and that is because you don't want as much side bite from the tires. So the smaller sidewall you can get by going up to an 18-inch wheel, the better for drifting typically. But that might range. I'm not super experienced with that, so there might be people in the comments that know better than I do. But if you were to try to get some stock wheels off of an Infiniti, an Altima, whatever, that would also help you with drifting and possibly lower your tire costs if you can get tires with those. Then that brings us to the 2 track days that I attended. So in this video, you saw a compilation of the 2 track days. The second track day, it rained, which was pretty unique. I got a lot of experience driving in the rain that day, which honestly made this car feel like it had like 500 horsepower. I don't know what a Z with 500 horsepower feels like, but I can imagine it's something close to that. It was super fun. A bunch of the high horsepower guys that were out on track with me couldn't get any grip. So it was really cool to be able to kind of like hone in my skills on a completely stock angle Z. Again, I didn't do any modifications to the steering rack, the angle, any of that. I drove it as stock as you can be, basically a factory setup aside from the coilovers, and I was still doing pretty good for my first time out. I was honestly really impressed with how much the sim practice reflected over into the real world. Now for the track days, I'm sure it's gonna range from track to track depending on where you are, but for mine, it was $150 a pop. So I did 2 track days. That came out to a grand total of $300 for those track days. So if you've been following along and you're good with math, that leaves us with a total of $9,562. We stayed under that $10,000 budget. We're able to rebuild this car and we're able to get on track for 2 track days. Honestly, I was super impressed that we were able to do that. I set that number having a feeling that we would be close, and being able to manage to do that was awesome for this car. What's awesome about staying under this budget is that actually leaves us with a little over $400 to put towards a sim budget. So that's what I'd recommend for you to do at home. If you're gonna do this
type of project and you have $10,000 allocated to getting into your first drift car, I would allocate around, $400 to $600 to get a basic wheel and pedal setup to start drifting on a simulator. That way you get the most out of your track day. There are a lot of people out there that I see go to the track that have no sim experience and they blow money on 4, 5, 6 track days, very unhappy with the car, unhappy with themselves, not knowing how to get the best out of the vehicle. And I feel like putting that money towards the sim, if you have it in your budget, makes way more sense than doing any additional visual mods or anything like that to your car, because you are gonna save so much money in the long run on gas, wheels, tires that you actually get to enjoy and drive hard with, rather than trying to learn the fundamentals for, maybe 5, 6 times. And that could, some people like here in Idaho, we don't get a lot of track days. So if I blew 4 track days on just trying to learn every single time I was out there, learn the very basic fundamentals, I would be spending so much money on wheels, tires, and all of that, and maintaining the car, on top of wasting years of being able to drive good and drive hard and progress even further as a driver. I feel like this can't be overstated. You need sim time. If you've never driven on track like me, and you're gonna go out for the first time and expect it all to just go good, I hope it does go good for you, but the likelihood of that is so low. So it can't be understated how important it is to actually get a simulator and practice before you go on track. So now that I've talked a little bit about the simulator, talked about the budget, how much it costs to actually drift your car, I want to talk about some of the things that I wish I would have done on this project to get the most out of the car, and some mistakes that I made along the way, so that if you're trying to do the same thing I did in this video, how to avoid making those same mistakes. So if I was to do this over again and say I had a slightly bigger budget, this is what I'd recommend adding to get the most out of your car. So number 1 would definitely be a bucket seat. I actually prefer the stock steering wheel. A lot of people are gonna say a quick release steering wheel as well, but I feel like if you're driving the car on the street a lot, I don't know if it's worth it, depending on where you live too, depending on your commute, that type of stuff. If you're driving highway a lot and you're going from 60 to 0, stop and go traffic, somebody rear ends you, take it from me, being in a car accident is not fun. I'm still nursing the shoulder and dealing with that concussion. You want an airbag if you can keep it. The Z, fortunately, has a really good stock steering wheel that I don't mind flicking around in my hands. Honestly, with gloves, it feels really natural to me for some reason. I'm kind of weird maybe, but I like it. But I would recommend a bucket seat. I did find myself multiple times kind of standing on the brake pedal or standing on the clutch pedal or standing on the rest pedal to kind of keep my body in place as I slid around. And depending on the track, it could be even more necessary. Number 2 is a proper locking LSD or a welded diff, depending on what you want to use the car for. This is a big can of worms. And a lot of people are going to say, do a welded diff because it's the cheapest thing ever. I can't 100% agree with that, because I know people that have welded diffs that won't drive their car, on certain cruises, on, our amazing mountain roads that we have in Idaho. They won't get the most out of the car, won't get the most enjoyment out of the car. They can't really go to autocross, all of that stuff. So depending on if you're only drifting and you've never planned to use the car for anything else, and you only take it out to the drift track when the drift track's available, and you only drift it, in Mexico when Mexico's available, then fair to you. But if you want to get, a multi-role car, you're going to want to do a proper 2-way LSD. Now, these can range in price. Some of them can be pretty expensive. They can go all the way up to almost like $3,000. So you got to be careful with how you, budget for that and what you do to kind of cut around that cost. There are other cheaper options out there that I have seen. So I know that it is achievable for somebody to do that. But yeah, that's what I would recommend. Either a solid 2-way locking differential or go welded. The problem with the VLSD on the 350Z is it requires a lot of wheel speed to be able to get the car to lock. You could see that that was what I was dealing with when I was on the skid pad. I was actually dealing with the VLSD opening when I would go to clutch kick. And once I realized, oh, this needs second gear wheel speed to be able to lock, then I was able to start doing figure eights and linking the track and whatnot. It took me a while to get used to, and it totally changed the way that I drive. But if I had a proper 2-way in this, I feel way more confident that I would be able to kick the car around and kind of fling it wherever I want, have even more control over it, even with stock angle. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I would probably upgrade an LSD before I do any angle stuff. That might be crazy to say, but I'm gonna say that because I feel like adding more angles not gonna change the way that you drive if you drive bad, versus if you add an LSD or a welded diff, I feel like you're going to drive better and learn more doing that first before adding angle. I feel like if you add angle with a VLSD, I feel like it's just gonna open up and have a bunch of issues. So that would, yeah, I would say that that's more important. Number 3 is not essential, but a lot of people are gonna argue that it's essential. And depending on your climate, it definitely is. 350Zs have a oil heat problem. They are V6s, they are big motors, and because of that, they heat soak pretty bad. And the only way that that oil is cooled is through the pancake plate where your oil filter is. So basically coolant runs through that pancake plate, and it's kind of like a CPU cooler on a computer. It basically transfers that cooled liquid through the plate to the oil and tries to keep it cool. Problem is, it doesn't really work that well. And the other problem is you can't really monitor those temps because there is no dedicated gauge on a 350Z to monitor engine oil temp. And the problem with that is that when oil gets hot, it loses viscosity. What that means is the liquid doesn't become as slick and it causes more abrasion. And abrasion is when you blow your motor up. So that's how you spin a bearing. That's how you break stuff in your engine. When the engine isn't cooled properly and doesn't have the oil at the proper operating temp, that's when problems can arise when pushing the car to the limit. So my climate is a little bit colder up here in Idaho. I wasn't in 100-degree weather when I was drifting. If I was, I would probably need an oil cooler to get out on track for the first time. I chose not to do that on this first stage of the car so that I could at least get my feet wet and see if this was even going to be a viable platform to drive on, or if I need to put even more money into it and go over budget. Along with a thermostatic oil cooler, I would also recommend doing a baffled oil pan to pair with it. You're already in there doing the oil cooler and stuff. That's something that I already have planned to do on this car in the future. It just makes sense. It makes sense to keep that oil cool. It makes sense to do it thermostatic if it's a, somewhat daily driver, if you're street driving the car or whatnot. It just makes sense to do all of those things at once. Baffled oil pan is also going to give you a little bit more of that confidence when you're up on those banks that I started learning how to drift. Your oil starts to get pushed to one side, and that can cause some pump issues where basically the oil is not being sucked up into the pump of your motor, and that is not giving your engine enough lubrication, which then could cause your engine to blow up. So that is definitely necessary for the track that I drive at, and for where I go to future tracks, hopefully. I will definitely need a oversized oil pan along with some baffles in that with an oil cooler. And I would recommend that to you as well, to take the extra step and do that preventatively. That way you're not dealing with any mechanical issues. If you are getting a new engine, or if you have an older VQ engine that's still in the car that's still healthy, you want to keep it healthy with that cold oil. Along with a oil cooler, there's another cooler that you are going to need that is pretty essential to 350Zs as well, and not something that I knew about until after I started dealing with power steering overheating issues. You do need a better power steering cooler. The stock factory power steering cooler on a Nissan 350Z is not adequate for tossing around the car, especially as aggressive as I'm spinning the wheel. If you look at the driving footage, I am slapping that wheel around constantly, just flicking it as much as I can, trying to get as much angle out of the car as possible. And that is not able to happen in a healthy fashion if it's on the stock cooler. The stock cooler just doesn't have the capacity to cool it, and it heat soaks way too fast and will cause to other issues and other failures with your power steering pump in the long term. So I would recommend budgeting a little bit extra and getting a power steering cooler if you're going to go this route with a 350Z. And the last thing on my list, number 5, would be a basic angle modification. So that could be a knuckle adjustment, that could be GK Tech's bolt-on angle kit, that could be even doing, I think Part Shops Max also has a bolt-on angle kit. I think Z1 also has a bolt-on angle kit. By bolt-on, I mean that you're basically only changing where your tie rod end connects to your knuckle and your tie rod end itself, and extending the rack, making it turn faster and having a little bit more steering angle. That's something that I would recommend though after you've done everything else. I feel like the car needs to be running healthy and all of that before you start adding angle into the car, because you're going to get the most out of the car if the car's running healthy, and you'll be able to learn the fundamentals even with stock angle before jumping up to that. I feel like you shouldn't add any angle until you've gotten multiple track days in. Other people might feel different. Other people might feel like they need to do everything right away. That way they can get the most out of the car. But I do really enjoy the art of building cars in stages. So like right now, this car is in currently like the stage 1 version of what I imagine this, right? And when I say stage 1, I'm not talking about performance. I'm not talking about different stages like how Cobb Access ports work and that stuff. I'm talking about basically kind of like, as cringy as it sounds, like kind of like Initial D. Like you look at the cars in Initial D, like Keisuke Takahashi's car, his car like over the seasons of Initial D like changes into different variants of that car, and then it has kind of its final form that has everything done to it, right? And a lot of people want to do that final form and then just go out and drift. And I feel like that's not the way to do it. I feel like it's more fun to go, let's start out with a super shitty example and then figure out what's wrong with it, figure out what can be improved, and then fine tune it to your driving style as you go through stages. And then you can experiment with styling and aero and stuff. As you guys know, I like keeping my cars nice. The 240 is super good looking, but this isn't gonna look good for quite a while until I feel confident in my driving skill. And I feel like that's part of the fun, right? I wanna get better as a driver so then I can feel like I've progressed enough to then put a cooler body kit on my car and be able to invest in aero and stuff like that and make the car look very nice, because then I'm confident in my driving skill and vice versa. So kind of to sum that up, I feel like do angle mods last and try to get everything running good, running healthy, make sure all the cooling is in the adequate places, and then start experimenting with angle and upping your driving technique. So now moving on to some of the mistakes that I made with this that I can help you not make. When I got this motor from eBay, I had one little hint about this mistake. I noticed that the oil pressure sensor was different. The threads were different on this motor. So this is a VQ35DE, and it's the same non-rev up VQ35DE. Everything's the same there, but the oil pressure sensor was different. And I thought, why would that be different? I wonder if there's anything else different on this motor. Hopefully we're good. Car started, everything worked. I'm like, great, this is awesome. Then I tried to close the hood. And then I realized, shit, there is something wrong with this motor, but I don't know what it is. And the reason why is because the hood was very hard to close. Then I tried to put the cross brace on the front, and I realized, that's not fitting. And the plenum is hitting it and it can't even get low enough to be threaded on. So what's going on? The motor's sitting way too high. And then I looked on the forums and I found guys from 5 years ago, some guys from 2 years ago that are all doing the same swap. And everybody's talking about the same thing. My motor sits too high, what happened? So I figured it out. This motor came from, I forget the name of it, I'll pop up a photo of it, but it's a Nissan SUV. So this is a VQ35DE from a Nissan SUV, which makes sense because it had an automatic pilot bushing in it. So that's where this motor came from. And those brackets are just slightly different than the Nissan 350Z OEM brackets. So luckily I still have my old motor, so I pulled those off. So I have them, I just haven't fixed it yet. So the hood will close with this. It's kind of janky. Yeah, I'll just show you, hold on. So when you pop the hood, very, very hard pop. And then, if you guys can see that, I'll get some B-roll of this as well, but there's little marks on the hood where the intake's hitting and where the front cover is hitting. And not the end of the world, but you know, not the best. I was able to fix this somewhat by running a plenum spacer. That's how I was able to get the crossbar on the car, but this is not what you're supposed to do. This is gonna get fixed pretty soon. Unfortunately, this is probably gonna be a multi-day job because I'm gonna have to drop the subframe and get to those engine brackets that are pretty far up in the engine. So it's gonna be kind of frustrating, but you can kind of see when I go to close the engine. So if I try to close it like normal, right? Does not close. If I go like this, closes. Everything's good. So that is another issue with the motor that I could have avoided if I would have done a little bit of extra research. I just had no idea, and it didn't really make sense to me why that would be an issue until I was in it, and then I realized. So just a silly mistake that hopefully will help you guys at home if you're doing the swap. I know there's a lot of people on forums that have covered this, but it's still kind of hard to find information, and maybe there's somebody that's in the same boat as me that I can help out. It's your brackets. It's not your engine mounts. It's not your engine. It's your engine mount brackets. So the brackets that go to the sides of your engine block. That is what is wrong. It looks the same. It's not the same, unfortunately. So going back to the list of mods that I would recommend if you had a larger budget, the next time you see this car, it's going to be in the second stage of its life. And we are going to have added a lot of those supporting mods that I talked about and add some more angle and whatnot. We're going to do kind of the same thing that I did in this video. We're going to talk about the mods, talk about each one, talk about how it affected the car, if I love it, if I regret it, if I hate it, and kind of keep that trend going. So if you like that type of content, let me know in the comments down below, or if you want to see more just like dedicated installs on specific parts, let me know if that's what you're looking for. I do have a final vision for this car that I'm not going to reveal yet, but you will see as we work towards that goal, it'll slowly start turning into what I believe the final version of this car should look like and should be. And we're going to continue to modify it down the road because I enjoy this a lot. I actually really like this car. I don't know why people hate these as much as they do. I didn't like the Z33 at first, and then I've grown to love it. I think it's a really good car. I think that they're extremely underhyped, but I kind of want to keep them that way because these kind of feel like the S chassis did. When I got the S chassis, it was like pretty cheap, and then they started getting more expensive. So hopefully Hopefully there's enough of these where that won't happen, but I would highly recommend if you haven't driven one, if your friend has one, go take it for a rip, go try it out, go for a ride. But with that being said, guys, if you stuck around long enough to be at this point in the video, I just want to say thank you so much. I hope this video was genuinely educational. Let me know if you got any value of it down in the comments. I would love to hear it. I'd love to hear your story if you've done something similar, maybe a different chassis. There's plenty of chassis out there, BRZ, FRS, Miata, RX-8. I'm sure there's a bunch of other stories very similar to mine of people kind of doing that. And let me know if you like the content style of the car stages rather than just, you know, normal install vlogs. But yeah, thank you so much for sticking around. Since you stayed around so long, I think you deserve it. I'm going to show you a little sneak peek for one of the other cars on the channel. So enjoy that little sneak peek, and I'll see you guys on the next one.